Good morning. If I look around the room, I'm sure you're too young to know Monty Python sketches. But in terms of Monty Python sketch, now for something completely different. Today there's 12 policemen appearing in court. So I really hope we see a new dawn. I think Mr. Mutibe was on TV this morning saying that the NPA will now act quickly and decisively against criminals, and really we commend him on that, and we hope it happens, and we will cooperate as far as we can. But it seems that in the criminal justice system, you achieve nothing if you don't have a press conference, and specifically if you're surrounded by armed policemen in battle fatigue. We don't have armed policemen in battle fatigue, but we're also complaining about the inefficiency of the criminal justice system. We're here today because of normal human behavior. It's just natural for any person to avoid a difficult decision. It's just natural for any individual to avoid those tasks you don't want to do, but you have to do it because you were told to do it. It's just natural to ignore those tasks that you cannot do and that you refuse to do, or we're here just because of plain incompetence by people that have to take decisions. Perhaps most importantly, we of the view that the NPA act in the way they do just because they hope we will go away, that we'll just go away. In South Africa, and you all know it better than I do, there are new allegations every day. Every day there's something new, then we have to deal with something new. We're dealing with the Madlanga Commission at the moment. We've forgotten about the Zondo Commission. We've forgotten about allegations about current ministers in the cabinet, about corruption allegations against current ministers. So there's always something new, and what happens is that people go away. But we're not going away, not as far as this matter is concerned. I'll deal with it later, but we wrote a letter to Advocate Mutibe earlier this week, complaining about what's happening in the NPA, indicating that they've taken irrational decisions, indicating that their decisions is just to protect politicians against prosecution. He now in turn referred it back to the person that took the decision in the first instance, the person that we think acted irrationally. He referred it back to him. We really hope that Mr. Mutibe will get involved and deal with our letter. What we're dealing with today, and the Mbalula investigation as far as the Dubai holiday is concerned, is a perfect storm. There's a deficient investigation, and there's an NPA acting on a deficient case docket. So the police, if you confront the police, would say, we handed over our case docket to the NPA, ask them. The NPA will say, we received the case docket, there's very little in it, so we can't take a decision. But there's no prosecutor-directed investigation that Mr. Mutibe spoke about this morning. Mr. Mutibe, this morning on TV, spoke about prosecutor-directed investigation. Now, just to make sure, and I'll deal with all the facts now, just to make sure that nobody thinks that we're dealing with a knee-jerk reaction, that we now decided that it's time to deal with this matter, and it's time to deal with this matter decisively, I have to just tell you that our first letter to the NPA about this matter was on 10th of March 2022. We received no cooperation from the NPA. We went so far as to complain about the inefficiency of the Hawks and the NPA in this investigation of this matter to the President. We wrote a letter to the Presidency in June 2022. We wrote lots of letters in this matter. So it's not something that we decided that we want to deal with this week, that we want to deal with now. We've been dealing with this matter over a very long period of time. Now let me just give you the history of what we're dealing with. Now, we all know we're dealing with a holiday that Mr. Mbalula took to Dubai. We know it. It's not a secret. It was admitted. This holiday was between 28 December 2016 and 3 January 2017. He was then Minister of Sport. We all know, and it's also contained in the case docket, that the cost of that holiday was 684,000 rand, thereabouts. We all know that no payment was made, and that the travel agency then demanded payment in February 2017. It's in the case docket that in February 2017, Sedgers, through a company linked to Sedgers, made the 300,000 rand payment by means of EFT to the travel agent. We also know that there were cash deposits of 300,000 rand more, cash deposits into the account of the travel agent, and we also know that there was a further 85,000 rand cash deposit at OR Tambo into the account of the travel agent. So that happened. That happened in February 2017 and months and days following that. What we also know is that on 9th October 2017, Eyewitness News published a report about Mr. Fikile's holiday, and say in the report they said that Sedgers paid for his holiday. The strangest things happen. On that same day that Eyewitness News made the report, Mr. Mbalula started paying back. He paid back Sedgers through the company that they used on the same day. So that's in October, after the holiday that ended in January and after the money received in February. So he decided to pay that back. On that same day, AfriForum, through Monique Tauter, referred the matter to the Public Protector. So the Public Protector dealt with the matter, and at the hearing at the Public Protector, on behalf of Mr. Mbalula, through his lawyers, they indicated that the money received was a loan. It was a loan, and that he paid it back. On 19 December 2019, the Public Protector made a finding. The Public Protector made a finding, and she referred the matter back to the NPA to investigate money laundering. Now, obviously, that never happened. The NPA took absolutely no further steps, and that caused the same Monique Tauter to register a case docket in August 2019. Now, a timeline in this matter is really important. So in 2019, case docket is opened. That case docket was then nolly prosecute on the 3rd of August 2023. So, and the letter we received, Mr. Mzinyati of the NPA indicated that there's no evidence supporting allegations of corruption because there was no quid pro quo, and that this was merely a loan and that the loan was paid back. So those were the reasons given for the failure to prosecute. We dealt with those reasons. We dealt with those reasons in a comprehensive representation to the National Prosecuting Authority on the 2nd of October 2025. We wrote to them indicating that there's a deliberate misunderstanding of the definition of corruption, that there was a deliberate failure to ensure that there's a completed investigation. We dealt with, we even in our letter of October 25 furnished them with a draft charge sheet, saying that they could use this draft charge sheet because when we received the case docket, we found the draft charge sheet drafted by a prosecutor of the NPA in the case docket. Now, a prosecutor would only draft the charge sheet if that prosecutor thought that it's a matter that should be prosecuted. So there was a draft charge sheet in that case docket, but there was no prosecute. So it's now 6 months later. We haven't received a response on our representations of 2 October 2025. But then something else happened. A new national director was appointed. The new national director made a public pronouncement on the 12th of March 2026, and we thought, well, perhaps let's try again. Let's take him on his word. What he said during this press briefing, he said, South Africa is one of the few countries that prosecute former ministers for corruption. We thought about it, and the word former struck us. So former ministers would be prosecuted, former officials would be prosecuted, not those currently in the cabinet, also not those who are currently in certain positions. And just think of the allegations against current ministers in the cabinet that's not been pursued. Think of the Zondo Commission's recommendations that were not dealt with. So on the 11th of March, something else happened. On the 11th of March, in the Mbalula Commission, the following happened. In the Mbalula Commission, Mr. Shibiri, Major General Shibiri, gave evidence. He gave evidence about a 70,000 rand loan he received from Mr. Mbalula. He received the loan because he wanted to service his child's car. Now, what's important is the word loan. Now, he was taken on by saying, but how can this be a loan? Isn't it sheltered as a loan? And everything that was said in the Mbalula Commission, in the interaction between the Judge Mbalula and the witness, is a mirror image of what we're dealing with here. In the Mbalula Commission, they put it to Mr. Shibiri, you only paid back once the police raided your place. Then you decided, let us pay this back. We say the first payment in this particular matter was after the news broke on Eyewitness News. That should be investigated. So our whole approach is, we're approaching the NPA, we're saying to the NPA that your decision not to prosecute, because we now have the case docket, is irrational and it's not in terms of the law. It's a deliberate misunderstanding of the definition of corruption. The definition of corruption was established and accepted by the Supreme Court of Appeal by NPA prosecutors in the Celebe matter and the Block matter. It was the NPA prosecutors that argued in terms of the definition of corruption that we think should be applied daily. The definition of corruption is so easy. It's if you ask for or receive or pay a benefit which creates a dynamic whereby you'll be indebted to somebody to do him favors forever. That's it. There's no indication of a quid pro quo that there must be a quid pro quo. The understanding of a quid pro quo is because we understand the crime of bribery. In terms of bribery, you have to pay money and get something for it. In terms of corruption, in terms of the Celebe matter, the definition was settled and it was just so easy. We see lots of people having lots of discussions about corruption, and all we say is just apply the correct definition of corruption. So we say it mirrors the Mbalula issue, and there we indicate, and you all have our letter. If I can just refer you to our letter, paragraphs 19 and 20. Now that makes it clear. In paragraph 19 and 20, the following said, we refer to what was said by Judge Mbalula to General Shibiri, where he said, I suggest to you that once there were these raids, you saw the police were catching on to Mr. Mbalula, and you decided that money that had been paid to you, not as a loan, I suggest, you should now suddenly pay back to Mr. Mbalula so as to make it look like a loan. We say, and if we say this, it's just to indicate to the NPA that they should change the irrational decision. We say, why can't you not say, if you deal with the Mbalula matter, I suggest to you that once there were these questions by the media, you saw the media was catching on to you, and you decided that money had been paid to you, not as a loan, I suggest, you should now suddenly pay back to Mr. Docrat and Sedgers so as to make it look like a loan. It's a mirror. So in October, in 2 October, and we're saying that 2 October is still our main argument. 2 October, we dealt with the law. We dealt with the definitions of corruption. We dealt with the application of the definitions on the facts that we have in the case docket. In 2 October, we dealt with the deficiencies in the in the investigation, which we say is deliberate, and we say that the NPA should prosecute, because the failure to prosecute is irrational. Having said that, this is our last outreach to the NPA. There's a new national director. We hope there's a new dawn. The national director said this morning that they will act decisively, that they will act quickly. So we really hope that the NPA will take a decision, failure of which we now have the case docket. This is our last outreach. We will develop the law to privately prosecute Mr. Mbalula, because we say, and based on our understanding of the case docket, based on our understanding of the law, there's a very good matter made out, and that a prosecution should follow. So that is what we want to do. We first have to develop the law, and we will develop the law. So I'll be willing to answer any question based on the law and the case docket and the information we have. But I just want to also then elaborate on what Mr. Van Zyl said, and that is, we've also now this week received the case docket on the criminal injuria matter. Mr. Jacob Pieterse opened a criminal injuria matter against Mr. Mbalula for things that he said about him in a public address. We've now received the case docket back. Now, firstly, we received the case docket back, and unsurprisingly, there was absolutely no investigation done on that case docket. Our statement is in the case docket, and the next moment, the case docket landed up with the prosecutor who decided not to prosecute. There was absolutely, that's all. We received the case docket, and that's all that in the case docket. So that brings us to a nollie prosecute about criminal injuria to case number 2. The first case was Mr. I've forgotten his name, Gade. Mr. Gade in the Eastern Cape, who made allegations against Mr. Pieterse. There was a nollie there. We're in possession of the case docket. We're considering private prosecution. Now we have Mr. Mbalula's case docket. We consider private prosecution. There's one other outstanding, and that's the case docket against Mr. Malema. We are waiting the NPA to finalize their investigation. I just want to indicate, to elaborate on what Mr. Van Zyl said. Mr. Mbalula, in a public speech, said the following about Mr. Jacob Pieterse. He said, and it is moral indictment of our society that predators still find a refuge in institutions meant to safeguard children, meaning the school. Even more disgraceful is the involvement of organizations like AfriForum, who shield suspects rather than standing for justice. He continued by saying, you see, when a person is sick, a rape is 7 years old. It's not a question of consciousness that you need to convert this person. It's an animal. There's nothing you can do about that. It's not a person who can rape a 7-year-old. That's not a human being. That is why we say AfriForum goes and defends such people. Animals, raping 7 years old, I mean, that is even beyond animals. I don't know. It's cannibalism. I read Mr. Mbalula's threatening letter with pleasure, indicating that he has indicted himself on the allegations he made, that he warned us not to make today. So we will be pursuing both these matters. Thank you.